Orange County has a unique set of water problems, and we've been working on that in our own way for a number of years. So, go ahead. The next, this is kind of the type of monitoring that we do. So, as you can see, we do a wide variety of monitoring. We've got everything from invasive species to trash to all the different things. And what I do is I'm going to go through the programs that we've been doing over the last 10 years involving monitoring, and kind of explain what we've been doing, who we've been partnering with, and what we've been doing with the data, importantly, with this monitoring. So to start off with, invasive species. That's actually one of the first projects that we worked on, that I worked on, Caulerpa taxifolia. For those of you that have been around California for a while, you may remember that we had an infestation of Caulerpa in Southern California, particularly in Huntington Harbor, where we had infestation in a small lagoon that was connected to the ocean, and then Agua Hedonia in the San Diego area. At that time, there was a big statewide. There was an intensive effort to go ahead and eradicate Caulerpa if possible, and we're very concerned as to whether it would be there was even possible to go ahead and eradicate Caulerpa. So what we actually put together, we talked to the city of Newport Beach about the possibility that Caulerpa, what it was all about, did some education with the city leaders there, and they decided that they wanted to go ahead and do a survey of Newport Bay for Caulerpa taxifolia. So we worked with the city of Newport Beach. We contracted with them and put together teams of divers who went out on dive surveys. The primary locations where Caulerpa was anticipated to be were near storm or where there was good public access. We sent out our divers for a number of surveys throughout 2001, and searched for it all over the place. While we were out there, we also did eelgrass identification and things like that. So what we came up with, this is our next slide. This is actually a map of the Caulerpa surveys that we did in Newport Bay. As you can see, we did both upper and lower Newport Bay, and we were going to report that we did not find any Caulerpa in any of the sites. So luckily Newport Bay did not have that problem. And we went ahead and did some basic eelgrass mapping for the city, and that's also contained in this city. So in this particular map. One of the things that was important is that afterwards, like I said, the state was in a major effort against Caulerpa. There was a side scan sonar survey done later on by a consultant hired by the state to back up our survey, and it also confirmed that there was no Caulerpa in the bay. So that was the thing. So going back to that's one of the types of monitoring we do. Was in 2001. What our current invasive species monitoring is focusing on is in quaggas and zebra mussels. We've looked at the state protocols for substrate, artificial substrate monitoring for quaggas and zebra mussels. Put together, worked with Department of Fish and Game, Irvine Ranch Water District, and Lake Elsinore. And those are the two to move forward on some quagga mussel monitoring. So what we did, it went ahead and went over when we first started looking at doing monitoring for quagga mussels. We found out who was doing it. The local area was Irvine Ranch Water District, and we had to go ahead and give us a tour of their facility and how they went ahead and did the monitoring. So this is I think this is a good tip for anybody who's considering to do something like that. Feel free to your local agency. They're usually really proud to show you what they're doing and their procedures and everything else. And Irvine Ranch Water District took us through their lab, took us out on their boat, showed us how they They had their substrates out and everything else, and really gave us a good idea. We were able to determine that this was certainly something that we could do, and we moved forward from that with developing proposals for monitoring quaggas and zebra mussels. So that's invasive species. Probably the biggest part of what we've been doing is just water quality documentation. So what you see here is a list of some of our bigger projects that we've done. This covers over 60 sites on 21 streams. For instance, the first one here on the list, the Santa Ana River Watershed Monitoring Program, that had 27 sites on 7 streams in 3 counties. So it was really pretty widespread for us. Everything from streams up in the San Bernardino Mountains down to Orange County. What the goal was with this project, and also the Orange County Coastal Watersheds project, was develop data on streams that there simply was no data on what water conditions were in these streams. There was some occasional monitoring here and there by certain agencies, but there wasn't a coordinated large-scale effort. So what these 2 programs did was do monitoring for bacteria, E. coli, Enterococcus, and total coliform, and then standard water quality parameters, for instance, nutrients. We did nitrate, phosphate, ammonia, along with pH, dissolved oxygen, temperature, all those types of things. We also threw in small surveys of trash, so we documented trash that we found at our sites, and also birds and other animals that we saw. So we really were able to create an overall, not only water quality conditions, but what the actual trash and things like that were. For all of these programs, we had, of course, put together a quality QAPP, Quality Analysis Project Plan, which one of the cornerstones of having your data actually be used and respected. So if you are deciding to do something like this, you want to be sure and have a QAPP. For instance, in the South Orange County Creeks program, what that was is unlike being a state-funded program like the other 2 were, that was did by a private foundation. So even though a quality analysis program plan wasn't required, it was something that we really made sure and did because we want our data to be acceptable to the regional boards and everybody else, and you really need to have that plan. So it also demonstrates some of the different funding that's available. 39H program is an annual program that's basically U.S. EPA money that's funneled through the state and regional boards. 13 was one of the several propositions we've had available to fund water quality projects. The Santa Ana River Watershed Assessment, that's just completing right now. That was actually a direct contract with the regional board. They were in that covers 10 sites on 3 streams in the upper Santa Ana River watershed. And the South Orange County Creeks, that was from a private foundation. That one was developed primarily in relation to the potential Foothill South Toll Road. So we wanted to have some documentation of the water quality conditions before any road construction goes through. And the Anaheim Bay, Huntington Harbor water column and sediment toxicity. This was a collaborative project between the regional board, Orange County CoastKeeper, SQUIRP, which is the Southern California Coastal Research Project. They're a major research organization here in Southern California. And that we put all together. Overall, we monitored 60 sites in Anaheim Bay and Huntington Harbor. Orange County CoastKeeper provided the volunteers and the boat for the study, and went out and assisted the SQUIRP personnel and regional board personnel and collecting water samples and sediment samples and benthic invertebrate samples for that. So that was quite a big project for us. Next thing, one of the other things that we do is sediment quality monitoring. One of our big projects involving sediment quality is the Rain Channel Remediation project, and this was a Prop 13 funded project. The Rhine Channel is a serious toxic hotspot. In fact, many consider it to be the top 2 toxic marine hotspots in the state. So what it is it's a little dead channel on the west end of Newport Bay, and traditionally this is where all of the shipyards and with their cannery operations. This was the industrial channel of Newport Bay. So this has been one of CoastKeeper's priorities from the very beginning, is that we want to see this channel cleaned up. Not just because of the channel itself, but because it's also some of the sets that are coming out there, including metals and PBs, things like that, are a threat to the entire bay. So what CoastKeeper did some original surface monitoring involving surface grabs in 3 areas of the Rhine Channel. And that got some interest going from the regional board and SQUIRP doing some additional studies. All of those involved surface grabs in water quality studies in the Rhine Channel. So what we really wanted to do was develop a project that would come up with the true extent of the pollution all the way through the sediments, also come up with a set of remediation alternatives so that the project could actually move forward. So we put this proposal under Prop 13 Phase 2, and it was approved. We were in partnership with the city of Newport Beach, which also provided matching funds for the project, and contracted with Anchor Environmental. So this was a really big project, and one of the things that CoastKeeper does is just because something is pretty large and we may not have the capability to do all of the project, we know that we can always get consultants to help us out with the parts that we can't. So for the Rhine Channel, what we did, there's 16 sites throughout the channel that were monitored by taking core samples. And see in the photo there, that gentleman's pulling up a core sample from one of the 16 sites. CoastKeeper went out, we supplied the boat and the staff, and we collected the core samples with assistance by Anchor Environmental, brought into shore, and that's where the other picture is there. Anchor Environmental provided a licensed geologist to go through and identify the different sections of the core sample that needed to be sampled, and sampled from throughout the core, based on the recommendations of the geologist, and identified then CoastKeeper packed those samples into bottles, and they went off to a certified lab, and they did the analysis on the samples. When they came back, CoastKeeper put together the database and a lot of the analysis on the samples. And that photo down there in the right-hand corner, what that's a 3D map of the contamination in the Rhine Channel from the 16 different sites. Each of those lines is one of the different core samples. The reason they're different in length is because some of the cores were more lengthy than the other ones. But we had all that mapping and that analysis in-house. And Anchor Environmental also provided an engineering analysis of what would happen to the bulkheads and the docks and things like that if the sediment was removed. And also came up with a set of 3 remediation alternatives, along with pricing for how the sediments could be removed and disposed of to go ahead and clean up the channel. What those alternatives ended up being, there was a basically disposal on land option, disposal in a confined aquatic facility, which is basically digging a hole and putting it in the hole and covering it back up in the bay. And their alternative to put it on the shore and behind bulkheads. And those prices ranged from $20 million for complete cleanup and disposal at land to $7 million for disposal in a confined aquatic disposal. And that's this. So this is moving forward. There's actually a dredge plan, and the city of Newport Beach is moving forward with some ideas on creating a CAD and confined aquatic disposal and cleaning this along with the rest of the bay, because there's some sediment contamination in the rest of the bay also. So this is a good project for us, and really ended up in doing a lot of work, getting a lot of information out there. The restoration monitoring, we had a large-scale kelp restoration program that we did for a number of years, and about 6 years. And one of the things is when you're doing restoration like that, you need to go ahead and do the monitoring to go along with it. So we used divers to go out and do the monitoring on the success of our kelp restoration, monitor the number of fish that came in versus our control sites. So we count the number of urchins, things like that. We currently have an eelgrass restoration program, an active eelgrass restoration program in Newport Bay. So we are collecting eelgrass, and we're getting ready to do the actual restoration activities. So that'll involve monitoring too, basically on the same level. And one of the things to keep in mind on these restoration activities is the kelp and the eelgrass also is related to water quality. So for instance, with the kelp, there's some going out. We went and did water monitoring in relation with this too. There's no use in going out and trying to restore kelp in areas of poor water quality because it needs good water quality. What our eelgrass restoration program is part of is actually part of a larger program to bring back the brant goose. So brant goose feeds off of eelgrass. Eelgrass needs good water quality, low turbidity conditions, low nutrient conditions for it to be able to thrive. So once again, all of these are related to water quality. And then one thing I want to mention to everyone out there, I've been very involved with the creation of the marine protected areas under the Marine Life Protection Act. There are a number of new marine protected areas that have and are in the process of being created all on the coast. And all these are going to need a lot of monitoring. So if you're an organization that's near one of these areas or is interested in doing marine monitoring, I encourage you to look at, identify your local marine protected areas and get involved with that. The next thing is investigations. Another type of investigations that we do. For instance, we went out in 2002, and there was a lot of pump stations out there in the harbor. We're getting a lot of complaints from people that felt like there was a lot of boater dumping going on, things like that. So what we did is we went out into Orange County has three different harbors, and went out and we did a survey of the pump stations in those three different harbors. And what we did with this survey is, first of all, go out and we went out with a map that was provided. There were maps available on where the pump out stations were supposed to be in each of the harbors. So we investigated as to whether those pump out stations actually existed, and whether they were in operating condition. And then we did some water testing next to them to go ahead and see if if there was any evidence of water problems in relation to the pump out stations. So the overall result of that was that we found that we didn't really have problems with identified problems with water quality near the pump out stations, but we identified that almost half of them didn't work. or that a number of them were really unavailable to boaters because, for instance, maybe somebody had parked a boat there fairly permanently, so you couldn't get to the pump out station. So we put together this report and turned it into the regional board. What that ended up doing was regional board's attention to this problem, and they ended up passing a regional board resolution up there on the RB8 2003. And what it did is it mandated that there needed to be a pump out station for any marina that had over 4 boats. It needed to set up a contract with a pump out service so that the service were provided to boaters. And then it also required the cities to do, or marinas to do, mandatory inspections of their pump out stations to know that they were working and available for boaters to use. So that was the result of another one of our monitoring studies. So that was a pretty positive thing. I just went out that was in 2003. This was adopted. The regional board has followed up on this, and we just last year in 2009 we went on a tour of the different pouts and everything else, and it seems to be working pretty well. The next study that I'll talk about is our Newport Dunes swimmer shedding study. This is another partnership. In this one, we worked with the County of Orange, the City of Newport Beach, the OC Sand District, and the University of California, Irvine. And CoastKeeper's job in this was to go out and collect samples at Newport Dunes swimming area in Newport Bay. Newport Dunes is probably one of the most popular swimming areas in Orange County. It's an isolated lagoon type area, so it's great for the kids. Especially when you have very little water movement or anything like that. It also can be a problem area for bacteria. So we had a number of postings for bacteria exceedances there, but they weren't sure why. So the city and the rest of our partners decided to go ahead and do an investigation there. And swimmer shedding was one of the things that we were looking at. So CoastKeeper collected water and sediment samples for bacteria analysis, and so they went ahead and looked at that. So they determined that swimmers really were not a source of bacteria to that part of the bay. And we went on with some further analysis, collected some samples that were analyzed at UCI by Sunny Zhang for viruses to see if there was any relation to viruses and the amount of bacteria that we were finding. And we found that viruses there was not a correlation of virus to bacteria in the bay, and luckily the bacteria levels in that part of the bay were very low. So what we ended up through further investigation, it determined that it was actually the storm drains in that area. There were 3 small storm drains where the presence of the bacteria. All of those now are diverted during the summer, and the postings have pretty much gone away. So there's really been an improvement in water quality there in Newport Dunes, and for the people that use it, based on this study. Been pretty quick, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to bump in there. You do. Okay, so the next one is our our first investigation. The Newport Bay Marina Metal Study and the Newport Beach Storm Drain Metal Study are both related to the creation of a copper TMDL that's under development for Newport Bay. So, sometimes TMDLs get created with some basic information, and then a lot of studies are done afterwards. The board in this case decided they wanted to go ahead and collect as much data as possible on the metals before the TMDLs are implemented. So, in 2007, CoastKeeper, under contract with the city of Newport Beach, was able to the city was able to get a hold of some TMDL funding from the regional board, and contracted with CoastKeeper to do investigation of whether marinas were a source of copper, were the major source of copper to the bay. What we did is we did monitoring of sediment and water in 8 representative marinas out of the 40 in Newport Bay. We had a number of sites inside each marina, and then we also had control sites out. So we ended up finding that there was substantially high level of copper in the sediments of the marinas than outside, and also in the water column. Also involved doing a number of collecting samples for toxicity testing and doing toxicity investigations, TIEs, to try to determine the source of that. So the important result of this study was that marinas are an important source of copper to the sediments and water of Newport Bay. The boats in there. So that's now the subject of another project we're working on and trying to reduce that. The next thing is our Newport Beach storm drains metal study. This is also related to the TMDL. Just was finished just in the last few weeks, so this was just released. What this was a study of 20 representative storm drains in Newport Bay to determine what the loading of metals was, specifically copper and zinc, to the bay from storm drains. There was after we did the Marina study, and the focus seemed to be on boats, certainly a lot of interest in designating whether we had the right amount. You know, whether we had the grains were going to be a significant source of metals. So we did this study, and we're happy to report that compared with approximately 50,000 pounds of copper a year that's deposited in Newport Bay from bottom paint, that less than 500 pounds a year of copper is coming through the 149 storm drains into Newport Bay, and from both wet and dry weather conditions. So it's really this is going to be an important study, and I think it's going to be a relief to a lot of people who are anticipating that there was going to have to be a lot of work on reducing the input of metals from storm drains into the bay, and with 149 storm drains, that was going to be quite a job. So that ended up is going to be a relief. The next one of the other big projects we just completed is program. What we started off with is we had a number of citizen complaints from there was a lot of runoff coming from plant nurseries, and that there was obviously a lot of pollutant loads with that. There was a lot of sediment and things like that. So we went out and did some initial investigations, and found that yes, there was certainly a lot of runoff, and our testing showed that it had really high levels of sediment and nutrients and bacteria coming off of these. So we did a little research into the nurseries and what we could do to go ahead and address this issue. What we found out is that their nurseries fall under the agricultural exemption of the Clean Water Act. And in Region 5 of California, Regional Board Region 5, we don't have an agricultural waiver here program here in Orange County or in Region 8. There really was no requirements for nurseries or other ag operations, dairies, which is under a different program, to have to do any monitoring or in the way of control their runoff. We looked at where these nurseries were, and what we realized is that the vast majority of them, particularly in Orange County, were the Southern California Edison wires, so under their right-of-way. So what we did is we contacted Southern California Edison in a friendly manner, and brought this issue to their attention, and just said, hey, there's a number of your leasees seem to have a lot of water quality problems coming off of here, and presented them with the data, and worked with them. And we ended up developing a partnership with Southern California Edison, and Orange County CoastKeeper put in a proposal under Proposition 40 for the Nursery Water Qualities Improvement Program, and got funded for that. And Southern California Edison provided the matching funds for that. So that ended up being a $400,000 project to work with all of the nurseries in Orange County on a voluntary program to assist them in identifying their water quality problems, and then to identify ways and work with them to install BMPs to address these water quality problems. To make this program work, we brought in the UC Cooperative Extension. Have a long and very good history of working with the agricultural operations, not only here in Southern California, but in other areas. So what we did is we developed this situation, this three-way partnership, where probably half of the nursery operations in Orange County were under Southern California Edison. So they all got the word from their landlord, basically, that you will be cooperating in this voluntary program, and so that was a big part of getting people to cooperate in the program. And the UC Cooperative Extension went in and did on-site surveys of procedures and how things were working in these various nurseries. And this county CoastKeeper did the monitoring, did the water quality monitoring outside the fence, and then we all reported to each other. So because of basically the pressure from Edison, we got great cooperation in the project. I will be honest, of the non-Edison nurseries, there were 20 non-Edison nurseries that were identified. Only 2 of them cooperated in the project, compared to 40 of the Edison nurseries cooperated in the project. The UC Cooperative Extension went in there and did quarterly, not only inspections, it was more like surveys to go in. We didn't want to make it sound punitive or that anybody was going after somebody, so they went in and identified issues that needed to be worked on, and we produced a booklet that outlined ways, different BMPs, including detention basins and things like that would work to control water quality. And through the program, CoastKeeper did the monitoring. We effectively eliminated all dry weather runoff for trees, and then reduced the pollutant loads substantially by over 50% in the nurseries that participated in the project, even from their wet weather loads. So it really made a difference in water quality. So this is another cooperative thing that we're pretty proud of. So I'm running a little long here. So enforcement, this is one of our big things. So water monitoring, enforcement, as you can imagine, one of our big things for about 5 years were home construction sites. As you can see from this picture here, you can have a lot of serious runoff from construction sites. So we keep an eye on that. Our latest thing is scrapyards. So we've been doing monitoring on scrapyards, and have been working with the regional boards and with the scrapyards to clean up the runoff from scrapyards. And then whenever we get calls from people occasionally on spills or dumping, everybody in our organization carries a cooler with a set of bottles and that type of stuff, and is trained to collect samples. So if there's something out there, we're going to do our best to be able to get that. The other we do a lot of our bioassessments. So for benthic invertebrates, on that first list every one of those programs we do bioassessment. So that's just kind of one of the standard procedures that we consider for scale water monitoring. We try to follow the California Stream Bioassessment Protocol as much as possible, as far as doing the actual identification down to the species level and stuff like that. We usually don't have the talent to do that, so we either send that out, or a combination along with the rapid stream bioassessment. Just basically rates a stream on a level of 1 to 5. But through the use of one or a combination of these protocols, we're able to do bioassessments and get a good look at what's going on in our streams. We do toxicity testing, collect samples for standard toxicities testing, both in marine and freshwater environments. What we've been working on lately is there's a new type of toxicity test out that is a standard method. It uses dinoflagellates. It's being circulated out there by a company called Assure Controls, and I'm sure some of you have already heard of this test. We've used this in a number of our snapshot day operations, and it seems to be working pretty well. We've demonstrated it with the County of Orange. They're interested, and but we'll have to see as to how it gets adopted and used. We're really hoping that it's able to be used further because it's quite cost effective. It's brings the test cost down to well below $100 from in the range of $400 to $600 for standard toxicity testing. Trash surveys. So we've been actually doing for years. A marine debris survey at Crystal Cove. I'm just not a fan of trash pickup. So whenever somebody asks me if we have a trash pickup that they're able to do, I always refer them to our trash survey. And what we do there is we use a survey card of both land and marine items, and we just check off the number of these items that we find to determine where the trash is coming from, and then also track the level of trash. So, for instance, at Crystal Cove, by far the highest number of items that we find are land-based. It's straws and balloons. So, we've been able to focus our education efforts on trash, on trying to reduce the amount of straws that get tossed, and the release of balloons, because that's the other thing we find. Another, the rapid trash assessment. We have a snapshot day coming up in next month, and for this time we're going to incorporate the rapid trash assessment into the snapshot day, and start using that, so we'll have a better hold on trash. The other type of monitoring that we do is just to back up the efficiency of some of our projects. For instance, we just got through with a low-impact design demonstration project. This one did by a grant from the Metropolitan Water District, where it was under their Innovative Conservation Grants program. What was is we encouraged 10 homeowners to management practices that included swales, detention bins, and etc., that would encourage infiltration or capture and reuse. So the idea was for the homeowner to put in these things, for instance, rain barrels or cisterns or detention basins, and then capture rainwater and then reuse it. So there was a dual benefit. The primary interest of the Metropolitan Water District to reduce the use of imported water. So they wanted to see how much it reduced the use of water by that household. So if we actually did monitoring of the household of their water meter and saw how much the reduction in water use was before and after the implementation of this BMP. Monitoring we did was of the water that was off of the hard surfaces and into the BMP and getting captured. And what we'll do with that identified the load reduction, the pollutant load reduction that we were finding from implementing these BMPs at these houses. There was a great amount of interest by the Orange County Water District, which was also one of our partners. They paid for some some extensive monitoring of things like, for instance, pesticides, pHs, and PCBs. Because they were very concerned. There's a big push with low impact design to encourage infiltration, and of course they're concerned about their aquifer, to make sure that wanted to see what was going into their aquifer and what they may have to deal with. So it turned out is that we had very low levels, things like pesticides or anything like that, mostly non-detects. So there really wasn't anything to worry about that. But we were capturing significant amounts of bacteria and nutrients with these BMPs. So not only reduced the use of imported water slightly, but it also the main benefit, to be sure, was a reduction in pollutant loads, which is something that's certainly important to my organization. That I'm about my 45-minute mark, so I just want to go ahead and open it up to questions. So I saw Rue had a question about how we were able to plant our eelgrass and what our success ratio is. So our eelgrass, the main thing is what we're doing is we're collecting it from an area over by Linda Isle in Newport Bay, which is an area in the lower bay that has an abundance of eelgrass. The city, everybody else really like to see eelgrass restored primarily in the upper bay. The bay has less boat activity, much less slips, and that's all of the ecological area where the birds and other species are going to be able to take the best advantage of it. So the very early phases of our eelgrass restoration program. So we've identified a sand spit over by the neck between upper and lower Newport Bay, and the process of getting our permits from the county to go ahead and start doing our restoration activities. Right now we're primarily collecting eelgrass, putting it in a tank, in some tanks we have at the Back Bay Science Center in Newport Bay, and we're experimenting with eelgrass propagation techniques. So we want to try to see how to propagate eelgrass so that we will have a steady supply, and use different methods such as seed bagging or putting it out on carpets to restore that eelgrass in natural conditions. So that's the email, the chat I got. Is there anyone else have any questions?
We have one question from Lisa for you, Ray.
Okay.
Yeah, how many of your program is manned by volunteers versus staff for the various programs you have?
We volunteers in virtually every program. So what our methodology is that we have a small number of staff assisted by a large number of volunteers. For instance, on each of these, we would have one staff person, then we'd have three or four maybe volunteers, that staff person at a site to do all the monitoring. So we try to keep the volunteers as involved as they want to be. So we've found that people have different levels of how they want to volunteer. Some people are happy and just want to fill out the paperwork. Others want to get very involved and help collect the samples and wade out in the stream, help us in our CoastKeeper lab. So we use volunteers in all of our projects at various different levels.
Rick, could you tell on your internship program?
Yeah, so we have an internship program that is in collaboration with the University of California, Irvine. So we have about 4 to 6 interns a quarter, and it's a 100-hour internship. It's actually a class for the students through the university, and work with us on our various programs, putting in 100 hours. So they get to choose. We have on top of our monitoring, we have education programs, advocacy programs, a lot of research that needs to go on. So we use the interns as they wish on all of these different things to focus on our programs.
Any other questions or comments for Ray?
Data management?
Uh-huh.
I'm just curious about, do you have a single way to manage this data, or how are you dealing with very different types of data?
So a lot of that I prefer to use Access, because I have a geography training, so I'm used to using relational databases. So that, and I feel like we get the best bang for the buck out of using Access. However, some of my contract managers for some of my projects want things in an Excel format. What we're doing is if it's my projects, then and I have the option to determine what I'm going to put it in, I'll put Access database. If it's something where I'm basically told what I'm going to put it in, then it all ends up in Excel. What we're doing is we've been working closely with Squirp to load all of our data from all of our projects into the CDN, the California Environmental Database Network, so that this is available to everybody to use. So one of the things that we have our interns do is upload this into CDN. The other thing that I actually go out and very actively let people know that my data is out there and available. So if anybody asks me for any of our data, we will provide that to them in its entirety, not only the final report, but raw data, etc. And we have had numerous requests for that from people. We've had everything from developers that are using it to see what water quality is like in a stream nearby where they're developing, to also used it for 303 delistings. And in fact, we have a number of streams that are now on the newest 303D list. Unfortunate they're on the 303D list, but at least we were able to develop the information to know that they needed to be there.
Anybody else?
One question: so who reviews my QAPs for non-state projects? What we do, for instance, on the creeks, the South County Creeks one, we'll put together a TAC team. So our technical advisory committee on that one consisted of, I'll kind of blank out on the names, but we have a professor from the University of California at Riverside. We had a gentleman that was with their Elsinore Valley Water District. We had a representative from the Forest Service who reviewed our QAPP and made comments on that and our monitoring plan. So yeah, even if these are all state reviewed, but even if we don't, we try to review those because we want to make sure that they're as accurate as possible. And then another one: do I have a monitoring design for MPA monitoring? So no, we don't have a monitoring design yet for the southern part of the state where we're at. We're still in the process of doing of completing our MPAs. But some things, that we're going to be looking at is just doing that. I can tell you in the larger scale of things, they're going to be looking at what is the baseline versus, a few years down the line, speed abundance, things like that.
Ray,
yes.
Who's your contact at Southern California Edison?
We have a number of contacts at Southern California Edison. One of the people that we worked with was Tom Gross. He's kind of started out the thing. Who ended up being our contact is Hazem Gabber. He was one who we ended up turning the report to, and he's an environmental manager for Southern California Edison. And I have his contact information if you'd like. Just send me an email at ray@coastkeeper.org. And Eric asked me to put my program that I forgot to put out. So for anybody who's interested, would like to contact me, my email is ray@coastkeeper.org.